Welcome to Lesson 3 of the Docker Beginner's Guide. This is where things start to click. Back in Lesson 1, you ran nginx with a single quick command just to prove Docker worked. Today we're going to run it properly. A friendly name, sensible port mapping, a restart policy, and even our own HTML mounted in. This is the shape of every container you'll deploy from here on out. So here's the roadmap. 4 skills, 4 flags. First, port mapping with -p, which is hands down the #1 reason people can't reach their container. Second, giving things friendly names and passing in environment variables, the 2 flags every real run uses. Third, restart policies, so you decide what happens when the host reboots. And fourth, mounting a folder so you can edit files on your laptop and see them live in the container. Master these 4, and you've got the production-shaped Docker run. Let's start with the flag that trips everyone up, -p. The syntax is host:\container, and the order matters. Read it left to right as the port on my laptop mapped to the port inside the container. So when you write -p 8080:80, you're saying, traffic hitting localhost 8080 on my machine should be forwarded to port 80 inside the container, where nginx is actually listening. The container port is fixed by whatever's running inside. nginx wants 80, but the host port is your choice. 8080, 3000, 8000, whatever's free. Flip those 2 numbers around, though, and nothing connects. Now zoom out and look at the whole command. 6 flags, 1 image, and every piece is solving a specific problem. -d puts it in the background. --name gives it a handle you can actually type. --restart keeps it alive across crashes and reboots. -p wires up the network. -e injects config without rebuilding. And the image itself, pinned version, small base, always sits at the end. This is the shape. From here on, you're not learning new commands, you're just changing the values inside this one. Let's zoom into that restart flag, because there are 4 options, and the difference matters. No is the default. Your container dies and stays dead, fine for one-off scripts. On failure only restarts after a crash, which is what you want for batch jobs that shouldn't loop forever. Unless stopped is the one you'll reach for most. It survives crashes and reboots, but respects you when you manually stop it. Always ignores even your manual stops. Reserve that for the truly critical stuff. Now we add the flag that turns a static container into a real development loop. The -v takes a path on your laptop and maps it to a path inside the container. Here, your current directory becomes nginx's web root. Make a folder, drop an index, HTML in it, run the container with that mount, and curl localhost. Edit the file, curl again, and the change is already there. No rebuild, no restart. The container is just reading files from your disk in real time. Once your container is running, you'll want a way to ask it questions, and that's where Docker Inspect comes in. By default, it dumps a couple hundred lines of JSON, which is a lot, so the real trick is the -f flag with a Go template. You point at exactly the field you care about, the status, the IP address, the restart policy, the mounts, and you get back a single clean line. That makes Inspect not just a debugging tool, but something you can pipe into scripts. Now let's stack up 6 small power moves that pay off every day. You can chain multiple -p flags to map several ports at once, or bind to 127.0.0.1 when you want a port reachable only from your machine, never the LAN. Renamed a container that got stuck with a random hash? Docker rename fixes it in place. Need to flip a restart policy without recreating? Docker update handles it live. And for quick checks, exec lets you run nginx-t inside the container to validate config, while Docker stats with no stream gives you a one-shot snapshot of CPU, RAM, and network across everything running. Here's the whole lesson on one page. 12 patterns that, between them, cover 90% of what you'll actually type. The left column is the daily essentials. Port mapping in host:\container order, environment variables, and the production default restart policy. The middle column walks the restart spectrum from no to on failure to always, and the right column rounds it out with naming, localhost binding, volume mounts, and the inspect trick for pulling a single field. Screenshot this one. It's your reference card going forward. Now, before you go practice, here are the 5 mistakes that bite everyone in their first week. Reversed port mapping is number 1. Remember, it's host then container, so if nginx listens on 80 inside, you write -p8080:80. Forgetting restart in production means a crash is permanent until you notice. Mounting the wrong path silently does nothing, because every image serves from a different directory. -EVAR with no equals sign passes the variable through from your shell rather than unsetting it. And reusing a name without removing the old container gives you that conflict error. Fix it with docker rm, or just add --rm next time. With the pitfalls out of the way, here are 3 exercises to lock everything in. First, do a production-shaped run, nginx with all 6 flags, and confirm it on localhost 8080. Second, mount a folder with your own index.html into nginx's web root, and watch edits appear on refresh. No restart needed. Third, use docker inspect with a format string to pull just the status and IP, then tear it down with docker rm-f. Do all 3, and you've earned the next lesson. And that's lesson 3 in the bag. You've got port mapping, naming, environment variables, restart policies, and bind mounts, the core shape of every container command you'll write from here on out. But there's still one missing piece. When a container dies, so does everything inside it. In lesson 4, we'll fix that with volumes, real, persistent data that outlives restarts, removals, and reboots. See you there.